From now, Prime Minister Modi is going to be addressing the virtual India-European Union summit. Ahead of his address, he took to Twitter and said, I quote, "I'm confident this summit will further strengthen our economic as well as cultural linkages with Europe." Now, the focus of this virtual summit remains on strengthening economic cooperation between India and the 27-nation bloc, which is the European Union. But China's expansionist policies are also going to come up for discussion. European Union officials have noted the strong economic measures that India has taken so far against China, vis-a-vis the banning of 59 social media apps. Athar Khan now joins us for more on this. Athar, just yesterday we saw India and EU seal the civil nuclear cooperation deal that was stuck in limbo for about 13 years. Another deal that has been on the anvil for over a decade now is the free trade agreement between the EU and India. Is that something that we're looking forward to closing in on?
Engagement clearly on that. You're absolutely right. It's been stuck in limbo for over 7 years now, despite the fact that in 2017 there was some engagement on it. But the EU has expressed certain reservations about the free trade agreement, known, of course, as the bilateral investment agreement as well, bilateral trade agreement and investment agreement as well, BTIA that is. Their main contention clearly is the fact that they have reservations about the fact that India has been increasingly becoming self-reliant. It started with the Make in India program of the Prime Minister in his first term. Now, of course, the push for Atmanirbhar Bharat is also something that quite unnerves the EU. They feel it's a protectionist mindset, and a renewed engagement on that is expected to happen in this dialogue today. Also, the fact that India is EU's biggest trade partner as far as these two are concerned. 11%, remember, Poonam, is of our total global trade happens with the EU. On the other hand, reciprocally, as far as EU's global trade is concerned, India is only 3% of that. So the EU is, of course, looking to bridge that gap. They believe the gap is far too wide with a nation like India, which has tremendous potential. So we do expect some forward movement on that as well. Apart from the FTA, the BTIA, the EU has also expressed reservation about dispute resolving mechanism, especially in Indian courts. We can expect the Indian side to make sure or reassure the EU side that it is completely on the level. Also, maritime cooperation in the face of increasing Chinese aggression is on the agenda as well. And we understand, as you already mentioned, the civil nuclear cooperation agreement has already been cleared.
Right. Other stay with us. Srinjoy Chaudhary, National Affairs Editor, also joining us on this broadcast. Now, Srinjoy, this meeting also comes after 2 long years. There was a gap of 2 years. We did see a change in the leadership of EU as well just last year. So India, of course, is hoping to sort out differences that we have faced with the previous dispensation of the European Union. But this also comes at a time when the world is staring at a pandemic. We're given to understand that India and EU are also going to look at maybe a joint operation, so to say, or a joint effort towards a COVID vaccine.
Yes, not only the COVID vaccine, but also efforts to ensure that it doesn't spread. So medicines for people who are affected by COVID, and yes, as you rightly said, but COVID vaccine too. But other things are also on the agenda. What we are hearing is that Ladakh could certainly come up during the discussions. EU authorities, sources have told us that yes, both countries have been in touch with the EU, and they have also said that they are happy that this disengagement and de-escalation process is going on. But they have also taken note of the fact that India has banned those 59 apps.
Right.
The other issue that could come up really relates to 5G, because again, this is something India would be unhappy with vis-a-vis Huawei. So if there is a European equivalent, India would happily look at that as well. So all these issues, trade and investment apart, there are major political issues that could come up.
Right.
Of course, Ladakh could come up and will come up is what we are hearing. And we are also hearing, yes, 5G could come up, Huawei and all that, and also these 559 apps. Besides that, there are 1 or 2 issues that need to be looked at and one could be relating to human rights.
Right.
The EU have an issue with human rights, and that issue sometimes comes up during discussions with
That
India.
is expected to come
we will
up
have
today
to
as
watch
well,
out.
when we are going to see Prime Minister Modi address that virtual summit. But the focus, of course, is going to remain on the economic ties, on furthering those between the European Union and India, of course. Athar and Srinjoy, stay with us. We have a panel of experts to discuss this. Bharat Karnad, strategic affairs expert; Karan Bhasin, economist, also joining us on this broadcast. Thank you, gentlemen, for speaking with us here on Times Now. Karan Bhasin, coming to you first. The massive thrust of this entire summit really is going to be on trade. It was 2 years ago that India and the EU engaged last. We've seen a change in the leadership of the European Union. A free trade agreement, like Athar was mentioning earlier, is something that India is really going to push forward with.
Absolutely, and we've been waiting for this free trade agreement for several years now, and one of the reasons why it never happened was because India and EU did not agree on our policies towards specifically agriculture and certain other sectors. But what has happened post the pandemic is that we have changed our stance when it comes to agriculture. We have gotten rid of the APMC Act. We are gradually liberalizing agriculture, and I think EU is going to also come to terms with the fact that there's a new kind of approach that India is adopting towards our economic policies. So a lot of those contentious issues that were stopping the FTA negotiations to go forward looks like they will be largely resolved, and I'm very optimistic that over the next couple of months we will see a much more comprehensive agreement on what would be the terms of agreement. And keep in mind that this renewed push for FTAs, whether it's EU, UK, US, all experts have recommended the government that this needs to be done given the way global geopolitical situation is shaping up.
Right.
Because now trade is not going to happen. The free trade regime or the globalization regime is largely going to be over, and what we're going to be witnessing is that trade is going to happen through trading blocks, and these are the
Right, like you mentioned, the geopolitical climate really is different. That order really is changing. Bringing in Bharat Karnad also, like Karan Bhasin was mentioning, another aspect of this entire trade relation between the EU and India is also China and its changing position in the global order. Mr. Karnad? I believe we have audio issues with Bharat Karnad there. Strategic affairs expert is also joining us on this broadcast. We will get him for more on this. But Karan Bhasin, like you were mentioning, of course, there is a changing global order, so to say. The geopolitical climate is changing. India is trying to portray itself, to position itself really as an alternative to China in this changing world order. That is also something that will come up, and India will push aggressively during the summit.
Absolutely, and I think this approach of India being viewed as an alternative, initiated not by India but by the Western countries, specifically US and the UK, which started engaging with India more proactively. And the Western countries have realized that for several decades the Chinese sort of way of doing things, where there are non-tariff barriers and non-transparent ways of getting a greater share of the global manufacturing pie.
Right.
That stands exposed, and to some extent, these countries, because they have a liberal order, they see India as a natural ally, because we are a democracy at the end of the day, and that makes it easier for them. And nobody can deny the fact that India, compared to China, is a lot more transparent and
Right.
provides a lot more market access to American and British companies or even European companies. And that is precisely the reason why the entire so-called global alliance is shifting in favor of India, and why we are witnessing such strong positioning, whether it's from UK, US,
Right.
or EU. Keep in mind, Trump has been saying repeatedly that he wants to sign a trade deal with India, and so has even Mr. Boris. He has been repeatedly saying that he
Right,
wants
it
a deal
seems
with
like there
India.
is a paradigm shift, isn't it, Bharat Karnad? Like Karan Bhasin was also mentioning, India is trying to position itself, of course, as an alternative to China. The world is also taking note of that. And what better platform could there be for the Prime Minister today to really corner China?
Yes, but I think there are limits to these kinds of shall we say understandings, because there's a lot of work that has to be done at this end. The labor laws, the land acquisition laws, and so on, has still to be, shall we say, modified and made helpful to investors from abroad who want to invest in factories and so on. These are the big hurdles we haven't gotten over yet. Then there is not the single window kind of processing and decision making that's long been promised. Each state has its own medley of laws and rules and regulations and layers of bureaucracy at all levels. And these are major impediments to India being taken seriously by way of becoming a manufacturing hub.
Right. Right, but also apart from the entire economic aspect of this, of course, India is trying to push China into a corner as far as the economic impact is concerned. But we've also seen several countries that are part of the European Union that have backed India on this entire issue at the LAC. Britain, which is not a part of the EU anymore, has also come out really. They banned Huawei earlier today. The US is also looking for something similar. So we have seen support for India against China coming from several quarters.
Are you asking?
Yes, Mr. Karnad.
Yes, of course there is between China and India, most Western countries would prefer India, and for the most obvious reasons. But that's not what's at stake. I think their willingness to invest and willingness to back India, support India, etc., has already been manifest.
Right.
It's just we have been not proceeding at our end to ease their way into India, their businesses, their investments into India. It's our problem, not theirs.
Absolutely. Bharat Karnad, Karan Bhasin, thank you for joining us on this broadcast. Enjoy. Chaudhary, Athar Khan also getting us their inputs. With that, heading into a very short break here on this edition. Of course, we are standing by for Prime Minister Modi's address there, but a quick break before that.